This episode and every episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show is brought to you by Monger Brewing. Visit Monger at their tap room in Marietta, Georgia, or online at ironmongerbrewing.com.
Open up a tab, grab a seat, and pour a pint. It's time for the Beer Guys Radio Show.
You want free beer? Go to the brewery.
Dedicated to the art, science, and enjoyment of craft beer.
Yeah, what's wrong with the beer we got?
Now, here are your hosts, Tim Dennis and Brian Hewitt.
Welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio Studios in Marietta, Georgia. And this week we're talking to San Jose, California's Camino Brewing Company. With me, as always, is the man who is still working through his New Year's Eve hangover, Brian Hewitt.
I'm working through it with hair of the dog. I just keep kicking the can down the road. So joining us today, we have Nathan Poulos, the co-founder and head of brewing operations for Camino Brewing. We're going to talk about journeys with beer, the beer scene in San Jose, Brut IPAs, and maybe even do a little bit of talking about the upcoming NCAA College Football Championship, which just happens to be going down in Camino Brewing's neighborhood. Nathan, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nathan, we're sipping one of your beers right now, doing a little pre-gaming. I guess we're in the game now, not just pre-gaming, but we have the N120 Bohemian Pilsner. Can you tell us a little bit about this beer?
Definitely. It's one of our staples for sure. N120 was actually a road that my business partner and I cycled across Spain on. And N120 just happens to be running through the hottest part of Spain, the Meseta, basically from a town called Burgos to another one called León. And during the summer, when you're out there, there's no trees, just fields of golden wheat and sun-baked towns, and you basically just kind of cook as you ride your way along. So the whole time we were out there, we were looking for something to drink, and the best we could do was San Miguel. So we started drinking San Miguel we emptied out one of the saddlebags on my bike and filled it with ice and beer. So we created a rolling cooler out of necessity. And when we got back and started putting the brewery together, N120 was one of the first beers we came up with. It's kind of a homage to that ride across the long, hot Spanish Meseta.
So I was curious, you mentioned the long expanses of like hot plains with grain growing. Did you reenact the gladiator scene where you're dragging your hand through the tops of the as a wheat or whatever it is? Did you do that? Because I mean, that would have been pretty sweet.
There were certainly times when Alan and I were at each other's throats, but
that's it. Little gladiator battles, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
It was one time at the top of a mountain where he looked at me and screamed like, "I hate you! What have you gotten me into?" So,
as it with any good friendship, that's going to happen occasionally, right?
That's right.
So, hey, you want to go drive our bikes through the scorching heat in Spain? Let's do it.
Well, we went to law school together, and so he and I have been through a lot of adverse situations together. So I figured, hey, what's one more?
Good stuff. So Brian, a busy week for us, a monumental, momentous week for us here. So it's the new year. It's 2019, which sounds almost futuristic, doesn't it?
In the year 2000, it will be futuristic. Oh,
yeah.
Wait
2020 is next year. Did you know that?
That's crazy. Well, I'll see clearly in 2020.
We will. Yes. Absolutely. Perfect vision. But this is our third birthday. Today is our third birthday show,
that's right.
Brian.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're going into our fourth year of Beer Guys Radio.
Happy birthday.
And thank you. Yeah, we debuted January 2nd, 2016 was our first show. And we talked to some of our good friends at Creature Comforts Brewing there in Athens, Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah. Happy Cake Day to us.
Happy Cake Day, indeed. Yeah, absolutely. But the new year, Nathan, are you familiar? You're not in the South, but are you familiar with the tradition of collard greens and black-eyed peas for New Year's?
I'm familiar with the tradition, and I've had collard greens and black-eyed peas down in the South on any number of occasions, so I can appreciate it.
Okay. That's, my mom and dad are both Southern folks. I lived in some Southern states growing up, so as long as I can remember, I've had black-eyed peas and collard greens on New Year's. And it's supposed to be the collard greens are for prosperity because they're green, like money.
Okay.
And the black-eyed peas apparently go way back. Old wives tells them that for luck. So you get your luck and money out of it. And I'm fairly sure that I've been getting some defective greens and beans over the years. So I need to
neither money nor luck.
Need to check my supplier and
check
see
your
what's
recipe.
going on.
Maybe you're cooking them all too long.
Maybe I am. Maybe I'm boiling the money right out of there, Brian. So do you eat collard greens and black-eyed peas for New Year's?
I would have. It never even occurred to me because I'm aware of the tradition. I've heard about it, but it's not something that comes to mind because I'm from the Northwest. I eat charcuterie, Tim.
Okay.
What's that?
What's that for?
It's delicious.
Meat sweats.
Yeah, meat sweats. It's something nice to chew on while you're knocking back a few beers.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's good for that.
Nathan, do you have any New Year's traditions?
No, I think we had pizza this year. I've got two small kids, and so basically whatever they want to eat that day will be enough. So
make it easy and go with
That's
it. That
right.
makes sense. We had some good beers, Brian, through this week. I rang in the new year with a Struzu. I thought that was good. Our little collaboration we did with Reformation. We'd worked this weekend, Brian. We worked on our studio, building furniture and installing microphone stands and all that. And we put one that you brought that I know you're a big fan of, the Duchess, as I call it. But you had the cherry.
The Duchess cherry, yes.
Yeah.
That's really good.
That was good. We drank the best new IPA in the state of Georgia, the Sweetwater's G13, the 420 strain G13, and the best overall, Tropicalia. We went through all the award winners.
We did. Yeah.
We sipped on through them. So what else did you get into this week, Brian?
Well, so, I took it easy on New Year's Eve. I didn't have my collard greens. I had my charcuterie, but I toasted the new year in, I should have done Struzu. I had one afterwards after I saw that you did. I had a Belgian spelt Saison called Les Saisons de Aperture, something like that.
That sounds fancy.
Yeah, so it was quite fancy. Pretty good, pretty solid. Nice green bottle. I enjoy that. It's just a variety of things. I checked out a new ramen joint and had what I'm guessing it might possibly be the Japanese answer to pumpkin beer. It's a Hitachino Nest real ginger ale. It sounds weird, but a lot of the spices in there actually reminded me of pumpkin spice, and the ramen was really good, so that was nice.
Okay.
And I checked out my year in Untapped, too. Did you do this, Tim?
So I used Untapped very, very little in 2018, and because I did check out my year, and according to Untapped, I had 27 beers all of last year. I think that's off just a little bit.
That's you're such a heavy drinker. I had 993 total beers. Which
was that just December or was that the whole year?
No, that was the whole year.
Okay.
And Untapped is telling me that's about 3 a day, so that's moderation right there for you.
Sure.
807 of those were uniques, and my most checked in beers, 420 strain G13 was at the top, followed by Monday night's Space Lettuce. So that was exciting. I think it's time for the beers of the week, Tim.
Crack open a cold one. It's the Truck and Tap Beer of the Week. Woo-hoo! Craft beer and food trucks in downtown Woodstock. Truckandtap.com.
Well, Brian, a great selection this week as always. We pre-gamed, Brian, with a Zillicoa Saison that you brought back from Asheville, which was really nice, man. Nice minerality in that.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that. I'm a Saison fan, and it's been a little while since I've sipped some Saison, so that was a nice one. Then, of course, we have a very nice selection from Camino Brewing. As we mentioned, we have already opened their N120 Bohemian Pils. We have the KM 0.0, which is their West Coast IPA. We have Auld Syne Brut IPA, which I'm excited to get into, a real West Coast Brut IPA. And we have one, Brian, that I think you may like, Cafe Con Leche Coffee Stout. Well, I'll like it too, but I know you and your coffee beers.
Yes, indeed.
So that's it, Brian. So we got time. We've rambled a little bit, but how about a news story for us?
What's in the news? The beer guys have the scoop.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Time for headlines.
We've got one quick news story here. There may be a delay in the release of your next hazy IPA from your favorite local brewery. The TTB has closed or ceased most of its operations due to the government shutdown. That means they will not be accepting submissions for new label approvals or reviewing the ones they already have, updating their website, and you won't get any calls back or emails back. But, of course, they will still be accepting electronic payments. because when it comes to collecting money, the government never sleeps, Tim.
They don't. They're going to make sure that they get paid there. Absolutely. Well, you're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be back very soon to talk with Nathan from Camino Brewing.
This is Mark Logus with Old Nation Brewing Company. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Brian and Tim, the Beer Guys. If you're like us, no lunch or dinner is complete without a pint or two of craft beer.
Which is why Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth are always on our list. Tim, why do they call it Truck and Tap?
Well, the tap part is easy, Brian. They've got 18 of them.
As for the truck part, that's where it gets interesting. Truck and Tap features your favorite Atlanta area food trucks, so you're getting a different menu every day.
Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth.
Truckandtap.com. Let them know that the Beer Guys sent you.
We are Reformation Brewery, celebrating the reformer in you. Locally crafted within the renowned Etowah watershed of Woodstock, Georgia, Reformation creates yeast-forward brews full of aroma and flavor crafted to last. Come see us in beautiful Woodstock, Georgia, for a tour and tasting of unique brews that you can't find anywhere else. Reformation Brewery, set beer free. ReformationBrewery.com.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you miss an episode, don't worry. All episodes are available as a podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and never miss a show. We're talking with Nathan Poulos of Camino Brewing Company.
Nathan, thanks once again for joining us. We do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So we've moved on to another beer here, one we were looking really forward to trying out. We've got into your Brut IPA, or one of your Brut IPAs. This one is called Auld Syne. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, with New Year's coming up and the style being what it is, we wanted to produce a Brut IPA that was as close to champagne as you could get and still be drinking beer. And so I think we did a pretty good job with this one. It's the second Brut style IPA that we produced. The first, we kind of put our own spin on. We used some Northeast yeast and some fruitier hops, and we actually called it Tropical Brut. People really enjoyed that. But this one, I think, is a little closer to what I think of the style being as it's come out of San Francisco.
Now, is that Tropical Brut, is that a regularly available one, or was that a one-shot deal?
We've done it a couple of times now. We did it once, and then people liked it so much we did it again, and now we're kind of shifting things a little bit, and so this was kind of the name is basically saying goodbye to 2018 and saying hello to a whole new storyline for 2019.
Yeah, this style just really generates a lot of polarizing opinions.
Definitely.
And I'll see people that, saying on the online forums, what do you guys think of this? And they act like they're just trying to get opinions, but then they proceed to say what a horrible, horrible style they think it is. And they say there's no way this could stick around or anything. How prolific is the style up there in the area, Nathan?
Oh, I think pretty much everybody's doing a Brut IPA. I can't blame people who don't necessarily like it a lot of the time. The first couple that I had, they were far too bitter. They swung far too one way or another. They were too much of that brewery's interpretation. And, having been to the Social Kitchen in San Francisco, that's kind of credited with starting the style, I had in my head kind of what it should taste like. And so I definitely see, where some people might take issue with other people's interpretations on the style.
The good and the bad of American brewers just kind of taking their own spin on things there, right?
For sure.
I have to ask it. It's a little geeky, but we have a lot of home brewers. Did you use the amylase to lighten it up, like I've heard some places do?
Yes.
In the mash or after the fact?
We use it after primary fermentation. So we let it ferment down almost all the way, and right at the end of primary, we'll put in, we have 10 barrel system. So for 10 barrels, we really only use about 30 milliliters of amylo. It really doesn't take much.
Okay. And I think I've heard and seen the best results, or heard people say the best results come from the after the fact, the primary or the fermentation stage versus the mash.
That's what I read, and that's why I did it where I did it, for sure. That seemed to be where
There you go, Brian.
Tim's just looking at me blankly,
you
like,
got
all
your
right, hurry up,
questions there, nerd. You got to have those nerds in here.
Yes,
man.
I had to know.
Sure.
So Nathan, question for you: something that just absolutely fascinates me is how many attorneys we find turn in brewers. And that's it. Now, do you still practice, or are you totally a brewer now?
Oh, no, the brewery doesn't pay me anything. So I got a family to feed. And so I'm still a practicing defense attorney.
Oh, okay. Really? Okay. We had Dan Kleben from Maine Beer Company on a couple weeks ago. And Dan said he calls himself a recovering attorney or recovering lawyer. So he's doing that. But we found Trim Tab Brewing over in Birmingham is another one that's
was he?
So
okay.
many. What do you think? Do you think it's the fact that being an attorney makes you want to drink? Is that why we get so many that start breweries?
I would call that a contributing factor. Yeah. I think there's at least 3 brewers on my street within walking distance of Camino that are lawyers who have turned to brewings, and we're all in different phases of transitioning from law into brewing.
I think the next thing is dentistry. The dentists tend to, I think, they like to drink and they wind up becoming brewers. So when you're out brewing, do you say you practice brewing, or is that not?
Yes.
I've always wondered that.
He's
with
a defense brewer.
Defense brewer. I practice defense brewing.
I always said brewing is nice because it's the one creative outlet that I've actually found myself to have any talent at. I couldn't draw. I played saxophone badly as a kid. And so aside from standing up in front of a jury in a courtroom, it's a creative outlet that other people enjoy. So they keep me they try to keep me in the brewery as much as possible.
That's always nice. You got to have something creative. And like you said, different people have different talents. Nathan, I can understand your feeling with the saxophone because I played trombone. In 6th grade, I played trombone, and at our first concert, I swear this is a true story, the band director asked me to move the slide, but not to blow into the trombone. So, yeah. So I gave up on that dream.
I resemble that comment.
Yeah.
Air trombone.
Air trombone.
I did, man.
Air trombone player. Now, Camino Brewing, you're a fairly new brewery. You opened in April. Is that right?
That's right. April 7th.
Okay. And a pretty cool story behind the name of the brewery. And you have a slogan, Brewed for the Journey. Can you kind of tell us how all that ties together there?
Yeah, so my business partner, Allen Korenstein, and I, we met in the first semester of law school. We were studying for finals, and I had actually been studying with this girl that I kind of liked. And one day she brought Allen in and said, "Hey, this guy doesn't have anybody to study with. You mind if he studies with us?" And sure, that's fine. And the next day he showed up and she didn't. So I've been stuck with Allen ever since.
What a trade. What a trade.
Kind of lucky for me because he and I have been across the world together more than a couple of times. But on 2 of those occasions, we biked the Camino de Santiago, which is a pilgrimage trail across the north of Spain. In 2006, I'd been a public defender for a couple of years and was looking to take a couple of weeks off. And I called him up and said, "Hey, I had this professor at Santa Clara, a medieval pilgrimage, and she talked about this pilgrimage route across the north of Spain. And, they say you can do just the last 100 kilometers or whatever. And what do you think?" And he said, "Sure." So I said, "Well, great. If you want to do the last 100, we could do the whole 500 kilometers. It's not that much further." Actually, I think it's 700 kilometers. It's 500 miles. So we packed up our bikes and we flew to the Spanish-French border, and we spent 2 weeks biking across Spain and just had kind of the most amazing experience, staying in hostels with people who are doing this trail, just like people have been doing this trail for something like 1,500 years now. So it's one of the Santiago de Compostela in the northwest kind of corner of Spain is one of the 3 major pilgrimage sites in the world. And people do it for all kinds of different reasons. We were mainly just out there because we were looking for a break from our law jobs for a couple of weeks. And then we got back and we found that the connections we'd made with each other and with other people out there on the trail, and just having that time, like when you're riding from town to town, you don't really know where you are. You don't really know what town you're going to next or where you're going to end up that night or who you're going to meet. That kind of freedom of just being out there on the road was something that kind of stuck with us. So in 2009, we decided to do it again. But this time we backed up all the way to Rome and we rode 1,400 miles from Rome up the west coast of Italy, through the south of France, down to Barcelona, so through the Alps and the Pyrenees, and then drank a lot of wine along the way, then up to the pilgrimage trail in a little town called Logroño, and back over to Santiago. So that was 1,400 miles, and it took us 43 days to do that trip.
Oh, only 43 days.
Just 43 days. Amazing. Nathan, we're out of time for this segment. We need to take a quick break, but we want to hear the wrap up here in just a minute. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We'll be back very soon with more from Camino Brewing.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
Looking for a great way to promote your business? CedarStream has what you need. For apparel, stickers, signs, and banners, we're your one-stop shop. There are never any art fees or setup fees. And if you need your items quickly, there's no additional charge for rush orders. Whether you own a brewery, bar, bottle shop, or other business, CedarStream is ready to serve you. Visit cedarstream.com for more info or call 800-686-7488 for immediate assistance. CedarStream. We print America.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. I want to give a quick shout out to one of our great radio affiliates, Real Talk 93.3 FM in Tallahassee, Florida. Catch Beer Guys Radio on Real Talk 93.3 FM every Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Now back to talking with Nathan Poulos of Camino Brewing Company.
Well, Nathan, we cut you a little short there. I do apologize for that. We ran up against the clock, but you were telling us the story of your journey through Spain and starting your brewery.
Yeah, so basically the whole time that Alan and I were out there on the road, that second time in 2009, we spent a lot of time talking about, well, what else can we do instead of going home and being lawyers again? And so I said, I've been brewing beer for a couple of years. People seem to like it. Maybe, craft beer is getting real big. And we spent the next 8 years working on it. And first thing we really spent a lot of time developing was our branding. And it was really trying to get that story together so that we could convey the things that we had experienced out on the trail, connecting with people from all walks of life and different countries, having conversations in different languages, many of which were fueled by beer and wine and other spirits, and really connecting with people from all over the place. And we came back wanting to create a place where people could have that same experience, but here in San Jose, California. That's why the Camino Brewing Company was founded, I think, for us out of that idea. And everything we do is about trying to create a space, trying to create a beer, a story that people can connect with, and really watching people, we say beer brings strangers together. And it really has been amazing sitting behind the bar, watching people sit down next to one another at the bar, who discover that they, were from the same little town in Ohio, or, have something in common that they never would have expected, just because they were able to come into our place, sit down, have a beer, and kind of put all of life's troubles behind them long enough to make that connection with somebody. So we want to provide some little respite, some little refuge for folks to be able to make those connections in their daily lives.
Disappear for an hour or two for an afternoon, right?
That's right. That's right.
So I'm curious. It was just occurred to me while you were talking. I'm like, well, you went going to Spain, Portugal, doing the Camino sounds great. Why that over the Appalachian Trail, for example?
I think that Spain was one of the first places that I ever traveled. When I first went out of the country as a 15-year-old, I ended up in Barcelona, and a little town just north of Barcelona on the coast there. Just kind of fell in love with Spain. And then I remembered taking this class from this professor at Santa Clara about medieval history, and her talking about having done some of these pilgrimage routes through Europe. And I don't know, something stuck. I can't tell you why. That's what popped into my head when Alan and I were talking about taking a couple of weeks off. But, 10 years later, here we are.
So getting back to the brewery, once you have all the concept laid down, how long did it actually take you to open the brewery?
Well, so the business plan probably took us a year, and the branding, took us another year after that. And then, Alan and I both he had twins, and I had my oldest was born, my wife and I. And so, there were life events that kind of popped up along the way that may have slowed things down. And then we spent some time studying where exactly in the Bay Area we wanted to put the brewery. Spent a lot of time, meeting people and putting an investor class together, because, we're both public interest lawyers. So we didn't have a whole lot of skin to throw in the game to start with. So we needed help with that. And we're lucky we found equity investors who really are along for this journey with us and hold a lot of the same values. And so but it took time, and, interesting little coincidences along the way. My partner, he took on an intern a couple of years ago in his legal practice that turned out to be the daughter of the vice president of the FICO Corporation. And it just so happened that some years earlier, we'd been talking to the general counsel for FICO, and he was interested, and things were kind of developing along with him. And then his boss heard about us, and then his friends heard about us. And so it just kind of, through that one internship, connections started getting made between all kinds of different people, realizing that they knew one another, and that they all knew us, and that they were interested in kind of seeing this journey come along for all those same quirky reasons that these connections between them started popping up. It's been like that all the way across, and it's been really kind of fun to experience. I can tell you one quick story about one of our investors. I named a beer after my grandfather, who passed away back in 2017. And so it was a Schwartz beer, and it was his favorite style of beer when he was in Germany during World War II and just after. So I made a Schwartz beer and called it WEP Schwartz, after those were his initials. So, our investor says, well, when's Nathan going to make a beer, named after my grandfather? And so Alan says, well, I don't know, but we've got this new beer coming out, and it's called, the name's going to escape me right now.
So many beers, man. So many.
Too many beers.
But, speaking of your beers, we've got one that we're enjoying here right now. We've got your KM 0.0.
Sure.
West Coast IPA. And that, I am not a West Coast IPA guy, but this is super nice. The bitterness isn't harsh. It's not too sharp, which is my issue with West Coast IPAs, but this is really nice.
Yeah, I find myself, whenever I try one of our beers, and I'm like, no, I don't care much for that one. It's because the bitterness has gotten out of control. And so that is something I definitely try to pay attention to.
And I love hops flavor. I love the flavor of hops, whether it's on the citrus side or whatever, but just, tone the bitterness down a little. Don't assault my palate.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of the reason why the Northeast IPAs really took off. People like IPAs, but they got tired of being hit over the head with hops. And now instead of the bitterness, you get the flavor and aroma that a hop can bring.
Absolutely. Now, I've got another beer I want to talk to you about, but I'm going to ask Brian to step out of the room so he can't talk about this subject.
Oh, come on.
We hear you did a little coffee beer that actually won the best coffee beer at the Sacramento Coffee Beer Fest. Is that correct?
That's right. Cafe Con Leche is a beer that I've been doing for a long time. It was one of the first beers I started working on as a home brewer, some more than 12 years ago now, and trying to figure out the best way to get coffee into a beer and make it taste good. So I got lucky in a couple of different ways. The beer that I produced originally, it was a great base for this beer. So I then added on an assistant brewer who's now our head of production around here, guy by the name of Elliot Hoffman, who came to us because he was working at the coffee shop where Alan would go every morning to get his coffee. They started talking about beer and coffee, and so Elliot knows more about coffee than most people, having worked in coffee shops through a lot of his young life, except maybe for our taproom manager who came to us from managing coffee shops. So suddenly I'm surrounded by coffee people who know how to get the best flavor and aroma out of a coffee bean. And we meet the guys from Chromatic Coffee here in San Jose. They're a local roaster who has been voted one of the best in the Bay Area for a number of years around here, and they make just amazing coffees. So I'm lucky that I get to select the best kind of single origin beans from different parts of the world and then put it in the hands of some people who really know what to do with it.
So what is your method for coffee delivery in your beer?
So we cold brew the coffee and we introduce it right before packaging.
I know there's a lot of methods. Everybody has their favorite one. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a quick break, but we'll be back very soon to talk more with Camino Brewing.
Are you thinking about opening a brewery in the Atlanta area? If so, take a look at the Park at Georgetown. This unique community will feature a collection of restaurants, as well as a craft brewery within the new J.W. Holmes luxury development, Dunwoody Green. Conveniently located less than half a mile from I-285, this enclave of restaurants will be the gathering place in Dunwoody. Krim & Associates, the developer of the Park at Georgetown, wants to talk to you. For more information, call Todd Semrau at 404-226-6526.
We are Reformation Brewery, celebrating the reformer in you. Locally crafted within the renowned Etowah watershed of Woodstock, Georgia, Reformation creates yeast-forward brews full of aroma and flavor crafted to last. Come see us in beautiful Woodstock, Georgia, for a tour and tasting of unique brews that you can't find anywhere else. Reformation Brewery. Set beer free. ReformationBrewery.com.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Cannonball coming.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. Patrons can get some cool perks like Beer Guys swag and commercial-free episodes. And thank you to our newest patron, Ethan Craig. Now back to our conversation with Nathan Poulos of Camino Brewing Company.
Let's, Nathan, we've been on break there. We coffee nerded a little bit and mentioned, how much we enjoyed this, and something we thought was cool is that you use different varietals of coffee in the Cafe Con Leche Cafe Con Leche each time and kind of highlight those coffees, correct?
Absolutely. One of the great things about being craft is that you get to change things up constantly and provide a different experience for people. with the big guys, people are looking for consistency, right? You always want that beer to taste the same. That's not what they look for when they walk into a craft beer bar. And the same thing when they walk into a craft coffee roaster. With Chromatic, they do great stuff, but they don't always have the same stuff available. So we look for single origin beans, mostly from Ethiopia, some from South America, but generally we pick from that small kind of category just what we like that they have available to us in the week leading up to introducing the coffee into the beer. So it's different all the time, and it's fun to kind of sit around and try these beers side by side. And we're looking to put together a system where we can kind of a coffee club kind of thing where people can come in and try the coffee next to the beer, next to a couple of different varietals of coffee. So it's a lot of fun, and it makes it so that Café Con Leche really never gets old because you're always going to be trying something different.
Keep it fresh. Keep it fresh.
You know, I think I'm more apt to find a coffee I like and just stick with it than I am a craft beer. If I know I like a coffee blend or, there's a roaster that has one, I'll keep going back to that. I don't do that as much with beer. We always like to tell the truth in our intro, Brian, and we did say we were going to talk about college football a little bit.
We did, yes.
And we've been talking about beer and pilgrimages and connecting with your soul and getting away. But so, Nathan, you guys have the college football championship game coming up there Monday, correct?
We do. I was driving around San Jose today, and they're putting up different venues all over the place and closing down streets, and everybody's getting real excited for it, and we're looking forward to having it in the area.
We've got a little football game coming up here in Atlanta in February that I think a
tiny one.
A little tiny one, yeah. So did you do anything special at the brewery for the game?
Oh, we're just trying to make sure that everybody that comes into town makes us one of their go-to places to stop for craft beer. So
keep the beer flowing, right?
That's right. Yeah. We're going to keep it flowing.
This is Alabama Clemson again this year, Brian, and this is the third time in 4 years that these two teams have met up.
That's what I've heard, and because I don't know a lot about what the projections are and the odds are, it seemed like everything I read went one way or the other in like 50-50 split. So it's
I saw a meme today on the internet. It says, "Congratulations to Alabama for their dedication to being the best in the country at football and the worst at everything else." So poor Alabama, man, taking a stab at them. But they played Georgia played Alabama last year for the combo breaker. Georgia lost
in Georgia.
But yeah, so Alabama Clemson for the fourth time in 3 years.
And I think the stats that I read actually slightly favor Alabama, but it's so close that might not mean anything. Just stats and chatter. So
now, Nathan, we know that the one thing the SEC does is rock and roll at football here. So do you have a favorite or who you think might win the game?
As a public defender at heart, I think I got to try and root for the underdog. Now, who's the underdog in a matchup like this? I think that
seriously,
right?
I got to go with Clemson just because Alabama's been so good at football for so long. It's really I find it hard to root for Alabama in football just because of that.
Give someone else a chance, guys. Right. Take it easy there.
But what do I know? I'm a Cal football fan, and they don't play.
See, I was going to say, man, we're these Southern teams here. So we talked a little bit on break. So you've got a really kind of a cool vision for Camino Brewing throughout 2019 and a goal of kind of what you want to achieve. Is that right?
Yeah. So, the one thing we do well, I think, at Camino is we tell a good story, and my partner and I, as lawyers, we tell stories. We got little kids, we tell stories. And so the one thing that I think people can connect with is when you hear a good story, people can connect with that story. So one of the ways we do that, or have been doing that so far, is with the branding on our cans. You guys mentioned that earlier. And Gamut is our branding agency there in San Francisco. They do a really great job for us. They also did a great job for guys like Fieldwork and Golden Road. So there's quite a bit of their influence in the West Coast craft beer scene. So we're lucky to have them as kind of a partner in this journey. But one thing we want to do is we want to tell everybody the story of the Camino, kind of let everybody get to know us. So metaphorically, one of the ways that people break down the Camino is the different parts of the journey across Spain amount to different ideas. That the Pyrenees, where you start, is kind of up and down and hilly and green, and it can be hard at times. And so people liken that to just, the journey of life, the ups and downs of life. Then you cross into the Meseta, that long, hot journey across the Meseta. People talk about that being the descent into madness or death. And then the third part, Galicia, is green and lush, and they talk about that being rebirth. And so we're going to kind of tell the life, descent, rebirth story here at Camino, so that people can get to know us a little bit better, so that people can get to understand why we decided to name the place Camino a little bit better, get attached to that story, maybe kind of motivate some people to dig a little deeper and maybe do it for themselves or get out there and experience it for themselves. And then we figure it's the kind of framework that we can use for years in different formats, telling different stories. So we're going to start off, we said goodbye to 2018 with Auld Lang Syne, which, is saying goodbye to the new year or the old year and hello to the new year. We've got some beers that are going to be representing death, I think, really nicely, some barrel-aged imperial stouts that we're doing. And then we're going to get hoppy and we're going to get light in the summertime. And then we're going to get rich and decadent in the fall. So I'm really looking forward to the story we're going to tell going across 2019.
This is pretty cool, Brian. If you keep coming to the brewery throughout the whole year, because it's a journey through the whole year at Camino Brewing.
You'll be going on a Camino of your own.
You will.
And
why not do it with beer? That seems like a good way to do it,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So, speaking about the transition of things and developments, I was looking through your Instagram account, or not Instagram, the Untapped for all of your beers. And I noticed that you have a number of Gozas and you've got some Imperial Stouts, but I'm curious, do you have anything wild or stout or tart that's going into some barrels coming out?
So we do have a barrel-aged beer already that it's Rioja. Rioja is a Belgian quad that we aged in Tempranillo wine barrels.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It ages in those barrels for about 6 to 8 months, depending. And so we're on the second use of those barrels right now. So we're starting to pick up some more of the spice character of the Tempranillo wine we got a lot more fruit the first time around. But it's fun to see how those barrels kind of age. As far as doing sours, it's a little difficult for us. Our space is about 4,500 square feet. And so until we open up, which we've got some ideas coming up with our landlord who actually owns the two adjacent spaces about opening up some more space for Camino. It's a little hard for us to start like a sour or wild project just because we want to keep everything clean in our brewery. So the Gozas were our go-to because of that. We did a 4-pack Goza release over the summer that was 4 different flavors. It was pineapple, melon, tamarind, and kind of a base Goza that our local neighborhood really liked. And our Gamut did a really good job branding those things. We got a cease and desist letter because of that, but
those are always fun.
But the people were really good about it. And next year, we hope to actually get together with that company and bring those Goza 4-packs back and really kind of explore the sour side of things a little bit more.
Nathan, thank you so much for your time today. If people want to follow along with Camino Brewing, where should they go for that?
So our Instagram account is a great way to do it. We're going to start putting out a newsletter, so you can go to CaminoBrewing.com to link to all of our different social media accounts and to also put your email in for our newsletter so that you can follow along with us and with the story that we're going to be telling across 2019.
Well, Nathan, thanks again for joining us this week. Really do appreciate it. We had a great time chatting with you and sipping your beers.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks very much.
Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Coming up next week, we're going to be talking to one of Georgia's newest breweries, Contrast Artisan Ales. For more craft beer info, follow us online. We are Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.